Congratulations on the show, guys.
Thanks.
As a part of the affiliate known as HeyUGuys, I'd be
Yeah.
remiss if I didn't mention HeyUGuys and the
I think
Goonies.
you're probably in good company here. Yeah.
You are in good company. I have to say, when watching it, one of the first things that struck me was just the kind of essence of the Goonies infused in it. And I know, just speaking to Jude, that Goonies in space was kind of the elevator pitch.
That's the short way to describe it. Yeah.
So I just wanted on the Goonies, because I know it's been a big influence on this. The first time you saw it, when you saw it, what cinema you saw it in, and why it's kind of stuck with you all these decades later.
I mean, for me,
I didn't see it in the theater.
No, it was
VHS.
It was VHS. It was like, you know, when you would only be allowed to rent one movie for that weekend at the video store, and there was all this pressure, and you'd be looking at each box, and then when you saw the Goonies box, you're like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
No problem. We're renting this.
It's not the same anymore, is it? Going through like streaming, when you used to go
these
to that
kids
video
today.
shop and see those amazing covers. And
Exactly.
But then you get nervous because you make a bad choice. And then that's the only movie you had for the weekend.
For me, it would be the bad one would be too scary.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, Critters is too scary.
Peanut Butter Solution is too scary.
Yeah. Exorcist, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh no.
So in terms of you guys coming into this, I know you'd obviously spoke to John Favreau and a few other people about this, and it seemed that they were quite keen on your pitch. How quickly from pitch to start production was?
No, it was forever because I pitched it.
Well, and also you had to pitch it to Kathy Kennedy.
Yeah, you're pitching like an Amblin style adventure to, you know, one of the main Amblin people.
Yeah.
I pitched it to Lucasfilm in like 2017, like after the first Spider-Man came out. Okay. And then I just wasn't around. I wasn't available until I finished that trilogy. So in the course of time where it was in development, I guess, because it was a movie, and then Disney Plus came along and The Mandalorian came along, and we realized that like telling it as a show would give us like a much broader canvas, and because it's about kids being lost, it allowed them to go to more places in the galaxy. So then we turned it into a show, and then the last step was just being on set with Jon Favreau, shooting the third Spider-Man movie, and pitching it to him, and him saying, oh, would it be cool if I came on board as a producer? And you're like, yes, of course. So like once all those things were in place and we had wrapped the third Spider-Man movie, we started on this immediately.
And how quickly was in terms of the writing process, from you having it I assume you had it as a script for a film and then turned it into a TV show. Was that process smooth, or did it change a few things?
We developed it in an interesting way, which is sort of like the process that Favreau has developed, which is that you're doing sort of everything concurrently. So you're writing the scripts, but you're also doing storyboards at the same time, and you're also starting to design sets and locations, and it's all happening on the same timeline so that things can contribute to other things, which is really nice. It's like great. Like you come up with a story idea because Doug Chiang and the Lucasfilm like design team has shown you a cool idea for a planet, and you're like, oh great, do a whole episode there.
Yeah, it's great because it ends up being kind of more iterative, like the process in animation. And, you know, some of those stories are so much sharper because you get to kind of look at it and tweak and develop things that you're actually looking at, not just words on the page.
Yeah, there's lots of steps in between script and screen in this.
Obviously, Star Wars is a huge kind of canvas in terms of world building, and they've utilized a lot of CGI enhancements, which of course coming into 2024, 25, you would, but there's a great sense of physicality to this show. And again, it goes back to kind of the 80s things with puppets and sets and everything else. Was that integral to you guys in terms of the tone of the show and having the CGI kind of add to what you were already going to be building?
Yeah, it started as just a way to make the most immersive environment possible for the kids, because we wanted to be able to capture their actual, you know, reactions to meeting a scary droid for the first time, or being with a huge alien monster.
And not being afraid of puppets. Because I think people put Star Wars up on this high, you know, pedestal, and you gotta stop and go, Yoda is a puppet. Yeah. Like he's amazing. Puppets are amazing. So like embrace that.
Yeah, and because we leaned on so many of these old school techniques, it feels more Star Wars in a way. There's something sort of intangible about what that aesthetic really is. But also selfishly, it's just fun to make puppets and do miniatures and have stop motion and matte paintings. Like, it's just fun.
Yeah. I spoke to Jude just now, and I was surprised that he hadn't had a call from a Star Wars person over the years, because he's one of those people that just he's done Marvel but hasn't got a call for Star Wars, even like a background actor. So many people are like, I'll just stand in the background, it's just Simon Pegg and Zach Braff and a few other people, like whatever you need, it's fine.
It was like he's been waiting for this call. It feels like he's been in Star Wars his whole life. This is just the first time he's been on
If you
screen.
look really close in the cantina, you can see him.
He's there somewhere. So what made him perfect for the lead in this and part of this kind of ensemble surrounded by...
We always describe the character as a Jude Law type character, like just someone who had that roguish charm and, you know, could play both sides.
He had to seem like he was a leading man in this other story, and he happens to meet these kids.
He feels very like, not Han Solo-y, but he does have that aura about him, like Harrison Ford does, I guess. Like you could just sense
he's a movie
it.
star.
He's a movie star,
But also you feel like he's lived a lot of lives, like he's been through a lot as well.
It makes you think that like the Star Wars galaxy is kind of a hard place to survive, and people tend to end up kind of a Han Solo type just to get by.
Just by the nature of living in the galaxy.
In terms of casting the kids, I mean, I've just been in with them, and their energy is just infectious. And they're like so excited to do it, but also kind of understood, you know, Star Wars and the enormity of it and all that kind of stuff. How quickly did you settle on the main four? Because I can imagine it was quite a broad spectrum of people.
Yeah, it took forever, honestly, because, you know, I got this advice from Richard Donner. I got the opportunity to hang out with him like shortly before he died, and he said when he was casting the Goonies that you don't cast kids to play a role, you cast kids because of who they are. And he told me a story about they had like a Goonies reunion, and he said they were all exactly the same as they were when they were 10. It was like, even as grown-ups, like they went off into the same groups. They were like telling the same kinds of jokes and the same kinds of stories. Like, he was like, they didn't really change at all. Yeah. And so, you know, I always kept that in the back of my mind when we were casting this. Like, you meet a lot of really great kid actors, but you're waiting for someone with the like essence of the character to walk in the door. So like, for us, it really just ends up being about being patient and just kind of waiting until you know.
Yeah. Did making something like the Spider-Man movies, even if you just made one, obviously you made three, the third one being this kind of crazy spoilery crazy thing that made
three of them
stupid amount of money. But making the Spider-Man movies, did they kind of help you to get to this point? Do you think if you'd have gone from Cop Car, a film that I absolutely love, into this straight away, do you think you would have made it the same way, or do you think the Spider-Man...
This is kind of like Space Cop Car.
It is like, but I mean, for me, I mean, you know, you had that amazing production experience on those films, and so I'm just so glad you had that experience, because when we would be looking at, I mean, literally, Jon Favreau's technique that we were doing was that you would put on virtual reality headset and fly through the sets and figure out what you're going to do. If you didn't have the experience of like having done all the post-production effects and everything, we would have been way more lost.
You get a little bit, you get more comfortable being at the center of a giant, insane machine. Get a little bit more comfortable there. But I don't know, Spider-Man is a totally different thing, because that's a pre-existing, creatively, because that's a pre-existing character that people already know and love. This is a pre-existing world that people know and love, but with our own characters inside of it. So it was a different challenge in that way.
Obviously, this as well with Star Wars as a fan base that is like feverish in terms of like they're so excited when stuff comes out, and they always have their opinions of what Star Wars should be. But it's like anything, I guess. They want Batman to be a certain way, they want Spider-Man to be a certain way. So you can't please everyone. But do you take any of that into account, or are you just like, we're just going to make the best thing that we could possibly get?
You just have to try and be the biggest fan that you can be in the way that you're a fan, and like if you're honest to that, then you hope that it comes out right.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to imagine like what a fan would think, because we just are giant fans, and so I was just excited to try to live up to it. Hopefully we do.
You just do your best.
Have you had any conversations or any thoughts about progressing from this? Because obviously you do some of these things, as you know, with Spider-Man sequels and follow-ups and everything else, but you obviously have to wait to see what people make of it. But in your head, if you got a small nugget of, not that you would tell me, but I just mean as in potentially if you got the opportunity to do it.
I think we know. I think we know what we would want to do if we did another season.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of built in because they're kids, that they're aging, they're growing up. So that's kind of a story direction. Just that alone. Yeah, watching people grow up in the Star Wars galaxy is something we haven't quite seen. You know, you see Luke go from a farm boy to this cool Jedi guy dressed in black. But this would be even more an extreme change.
Yeah. I spoke to the kids earlier, and because I had a bit of extended time with them, and asked them, "Oh, do you have any actors that you love that you would love to have in Star Wars?" And Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman popped up because obviously everyone loves Deadpool and Wolverine. Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet popped up because everyone loves them. But then they were talking about Tom Holland, and apparently they had a FaceTime with Tom when they were in stunt casting. So they were just like, "John, come on, make it happen." But I guess Tom is. Even if you wanted to logistically,
Tom, if you can hear this,
he's so busy, and he's about to go work with Nolan, isn't he?
Yeah,
so
I know.
It's just, and do Spider-Man again.
He's too busy.
Yeah, he
But
could be like a really gross-looking alien.
Do a voice. Just record it on your phone, Tom.
That's true. That's true.
I wanted to ask you just very quickly about No Way Home, just because it was at a time when, obviously COVID was still around and everyone was kind of down in the dumps and didn't necessarily see an endpoint. And then Spider-Man came along and gave this. I was at the only screening in this country, press screening, and just the crazy. I've never seen audiences make those kind of noises when Andrew obviously and Toby, but even like Charlie Cox's great way you introduced him and all that kind of stuff. Have you, now it's a few years later, have you kind of detached yourself from it and been able to look back and just go, not just in terms of the impact it had, but just in terms of the pressure on you in terms of the film itself? Is just
no, it doesn't seem real. Like it was such a strange.
You can't just watch it like a Spider-Man movie.
It was such a strange time. When we were making it, people weren't sure if there were even going to be movies anymore. So, like it's really it's really hard to look back on it because it was such a unique experience. Like I'm never gonna have an experience like that ever again. I do have a video on my phone of I would go and sneak into theaters like on opening weekend and just stand in the back for the big reveal moment. And it was just crazy. People went insane. Like
As filmmakers though, that's a very good question before I leave. What's your reaction to people like filming the reactions? Because on one side it's great to see the fan reactions, but also it's just like put your phone away, enjoying the film. It's kind of a yin and yang thing, isn't it? I guess.
I was the one filming everyone's.
You can't.
Can't complain.
Yeah. Listen, guys, I really enjoyed the show. Can't wait to watch.
Thanks
the rest.
a lot.
Thank you so much for your time.
Glad you like it.
Thanks so much.
Really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys.
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys.
Hey, you guys!